Before I jump right into the processes and the how to effectively recruit, hire, and train employees, I want to first land a couple of key ideas, specifically the importance and value of having processes for recruiting, hiring, and training, and going through the effort to implement them. Having these processes will make it much, much easier to get new employees hired and up to speed faster, but there is still work to do. It's simple, it's just not easy. And this isn't meant to be a silver bullet. This isn't a quick fix. I do have a number of processes that you can access and edit and implement in your business. And I think another key concept to land is that if you've never done this before, it's going to look like a lot of work at the beginning, but remember that every time you do it for any position in your company, it is then done. You don't ever have to really go through everything that I'm going to show you today. Again, it's done. You can replicate it over and over again. Okay, that said, here's a key concept that I want to make sure people get, and that is, I can't tell you how often I hear this from our clients. They say, you know, there just aren't any good people out there anymore. There aren't any good employees. And there's always lots of evidence to substantiate their belief. I mean, I hear about candidates who show up drunk at their interview, right? I mean, what on earth was somebody thinking? People don't pass their background checks, new hires who pull no-shows on their first day of work, people lie on their resume. There is so much evidence that we begin to believe that this is true, that there just aren't any good people to hire out there, that it's not possible to find really good people who can achieve the expectations you have of them. If you hear yourself saying this, and I'm not going to judge you for saying this because it seems to be the case, but think about it logically. Do you really think that no one in your area has been able to hire a new employee recently, that there simply are no good people out there? I mean, it doesn't really make any sense. So the first challenge is simply to question your belief. Because if you really believe this is true, then you're never going to really try to find great people. And I mean, what's the point, right? If everyone's going to screw up, what's the point of trying to find good people? And if you don't try to find great people, you're never going to find them. So you'll simply settle for the first candidate that walks through the door. You'll hire heartbeats, as one of our clients said. Well, today I'm going to offer you a whole series of processes for getting this done, for finding great people. It is not a magic bullet. As I said a moment ago, there's still work for you to do. You'll need to review and edit the documents that we have for you, and you will need to implement them, but it is all replicatable. I want to mention that I was listening to a TED Talk recently by a guy named Mike Robbins. He was speaking about recognition and appreciation, and you might be thinking, what's that got to do with hiring? Well, stay with me and I'll show you. Mike is an expert on this topic. He's written books. He gives lectures for companies like Google, The Gap, San Francisco Giants. He gives seminars, and of course, he's done a TED Talk. And he spoke about a study done by the US Department of Labor. They asked people who left their jobs, why did you leave? The number one reason, 64% of the people surveyed, they said they left their jobs because they didn't feel appreciated or valued. It was more important than how much money they made. It was more important than the work they did. It was a sense of feeling valued that was most important to them. So the people who get this, the business owners, the managers, and the organizations who really understand this, they thrive. So it's important to have a management process in addition to recruiting, hiring, and training, a management process that recognizes, acknowledges, and appreciates your people and helps you communicate that appreciation. So we're going to even get into that today. I've got a very simple process to help you do that. Please don't be thinking, why should I appreciate a knucklehead? I'm not asking you to be inauthentic. I'm not asking you to value someone for what they aren't. But if you get a good employee into a hiring meeting, you don't want to blow it with lousy training and no management. Mike also spoke about a study that was done by the Haas Business School at UC Berkeley, and the focus was what motivates productivity. He found that when people feel recognized, they were 23% more productive and effective than when they weren't recognized. I mean, that makes sense, right? Someone does a good job, you acknowledge them for and recognize them for what they did. But what the same study found was that when people feel valued and cared for, we're talking about a figurative pat on the back, although it's never quite that simple. When they felt appreciated, there was a 43% increase in productivity and effectiveness. That's a 20% bump in productivity when focusing on how people are, not just what they've done. And there's a distinction there. Is this hokey? Is this new agey? Not at all. It is scientifically proven that when one person expresses kindness or appreciation to another person and it's received, it raises the serotonin level in both people's brains. It's physiological evidence. It basically makes both people feel better. And it's simple to do. And why don't we do it more often? I think it's probably because we simply forget. And we get stressed about what's going on in our business, we get overwhelmed. Well, what I'm going to tell you today is you want to remember, with the people you interact with, you want to remember this because it's very simple and it's very profound. So hiring then is just one part of the puzzle. You're also going to need, and I'm going to show you this today, you're going to need a training process to make sure it's really easy to get someone up to speed as quickly as possible. It's all great and fine to hire someone, but if they don't get up to speed so you can get a return on your investment, well, okay, that's important too. You're also going to need a management process to follow up the training and to make sure there's a place for recognition and appreciation in your company's culture. So you want to keep frustration, overwhelm, chaos, impatience out of the early days and weeks after hiring a new employee. I mean, imagine that you're a brand new employee coming into a company and the company's filled with overwhelm, chaos, impatience. It's not a great environment to be introduced to. So if you can recruit, hire, train with a sense of control, with a sense of you having done this before, with a sense of patience and understanding, with a sense of a series of processes that are walking you in a structured fashion through this sea of bringing on a new employee, then your new employee is going to get up to speed faster with a much better understanding, and they won't feel flustered and panicked. They'll make fewer mistakes. They'll feel like they matter and that you've made the effort to actually help them understand what they need to do and how they need to do it. And it doesn't take a heck of a lot of effort on your part if you've got these procedures down. So we're going to get into that. Now, if I haven't convinced you with the sort of the moral and ethical need and the personal growth required to get past the faulty thinking, like there are no good people out there, if I can get you past this faulty thinking, this unfounded belief, let's talk about the cost of not having these processes in place. There's a guy named Brad Smart wrote a book called Top Grading, great book. I've read this book. I'd recommend it if you want to get depressed about the true cost of employee turnover. But it will, when you start reading about this, it's going to promote the whole idea of implementing these processes. His research shows that 75% of the time, companies make a hiring error. They hire the wrong person for the position. That person does not work out. That's 3 out of every 4 people you hire are going to fail. Think about that. 3 out of 4 people you hire are not going to make it. And I will say that's because most entrepreneurs do not have what we're going to share with you today. They don't have an effective hiring process, they don't have an effective training process, and they don't have ongoing management processes. If you implement the processes that are available to you, that we have made available to you today, this is not going to be an issue for you. Because if you have clear instructions and clear expectations that are readily available, and they're used to hire, train, and manage your employees, then you will not only have more efficient employees, you're going to have happier employees who are more satisfied at work. You won't have to fire as often, and you won't have to hire as often, and you'll be able to create a business that runs more consistently and smoothly, and you'll have achieved what we call process dependency instead of people dependency. This isn't to say that you don't need good people. It's just if you've got good people, you want to have them following processes. That's what we mean by process dependency. So just the hassle of having to go through recruiting, hiring, and training 3 times to get one right should be enough to get you interested in implementing these processes. And if I haven't landed the importance yet, here's one more idea. Do you have any idea how much it really costs to hire a new employee? Because according to Brad Smart, he says it costs 15 times that position's salary to hire. And I read that, I thought, yeah, right, 15 times. I couldn't believe that the figure could be that much. But this guy's done the research. I haven't. I just read his books, and I was sort of stunned when I read that, but I got thinking about it. And I thought, if you think about it, there's the cost of recruiting the new employee. Some people have recruiting companies. Some people, it's just the expense of putting it on Indeed.com and ZipRecruiter and the time and effort. You also have the expense in both time and money of training the employee. You have the cost of lost opportunity while they're learning how to do what they need to do. This is huge because let's say I'm hiring a salesperson, even if they're a commissioned salesperson, and it's really not costing me anything except a percentage of their sales. But if I expect that I should be able to get someone up to speed in, say, 60 days or 90 days so that they're selling, let's say, $10,000 worth of product or services every month, and they're only selling $2,000, well, it's not just, I'm losing $8,000 a month because that's the cost of lost opportunity. Really, really critical here. Multiply that by 12 if you kept this person on for a year, and that's the cost of the lost opportunity by keeping this person. You also have the cost of the mistakes they make while they're learning. And when they make mistakes, you have the cost of the reputation with your clients and your prospects. And you also have the cost of the frustrations and the interruptions that these employees that were mishired, these frustrations and the interruptions that they cause with your colleagues during their first 4 to 6 months on the job. So, if Brad says 15 times their annual salary, but let's say 1.5 times their salary, which I think is super conservative. That means that if you have an employee who is making an annual salary of $40,000, the very least it will cost you to replace that employee is $60,000, and you should be multiplying that by 3 because it's going to cost you 3 mishires before you get someone on board. Okay, so enough said about that. Let's actually get into the nitty-gritty. I'm going to start with an overview of the process that we're going to be reviewing today. It's essentially a flow chart of all of the elements of the recruiting, hiring, and training process. As I pull each one of these steps up, I'm going to be connecting it with resources that we have available for you. Okay, so the first step in the recruiting and hiring process is the job description. You really need to know what this position will be doing before you even begin to start the process of finding someone to fill that position. And I'm going to be digging in with each of these steps as we go through, but for now I just want to walk through the flow chart. So on the left side of your screen in the white boxes, that's the flow chart. On the right side, these are going to be trainings, processes, and there's actually there should be an asset on your go to webinar control panel where you can click, and it will download this entire slide that I'm about to put out for you, so that you can come back and research these resources afterwards. So step number 1, you really want to have a good job description. I'll talk about job descriptions in a minute. And then you're going to need to get the processes on that job description documented, as many as you can. This is going to become a key ingredient of training and manage the new employee. These documented systems are the tools for that employee to succeed and to get up to speed quickly and efficiently. And then you're going to be ready to advertise for the position. and you're going to start getting some candidates. You'll want to start interviews. Often the first interview is going to be a quick telephone interview this is your first filter before you bring maybe 3 or 4 candidates in for an in-person interview. And then you're going to decide on the best candidate and begin the hiring process. And when the new employee reports for work, there should be an orientation or some sort of an onboarding process. It introduces them to your company, to your culture, who you are, why you exist. So you're going to share your vision, your corporate culture. You'll make introductions to the other staff. You give them what they need to succeed. I mean, things like business cards, a cell phone, a computer, telephone, a truck, whatever, setting up their email address, all of these little things. So you'll see in one of these processes, there's a checklist that you can go through and say, okay, done, 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 done. It's a complete list that you can then edit. There are also some HR type processes that you need to get completed, forms signed and other information gathered for their personnel file. Then they get introduced to their job description, what they will be doing and how they will achieve your expectations. And finally, following up, checking in, working with the employee to be sure they are following the processes that you've used to train them and that they are achieving the expectations. So you need to manage them. Remember what I said earlier about recognition and appreciation? You're going to follow up. You're going to let them know they're doing this well. They need a little bit more training on that, and that if they are worthy of appreciation, you're going to appreciate them and recognize them for their accomplishments. And then there are some other tools that we have, such as, the employee handbook, maybe a sample 30, 60, 90-day review process, how you manage them, doing performance evaluations, employee termination. I mean, all these are sort of still part of the recruiting, hiring, and training process. Now, as I go through these, know that any of these steps in any of these processes can be removed or edited. Whole processes can be eliminated to simplify things. This is a process that you can use as is, or you can edit to meet your company's needs, depending on how big you are or how small you are, or depending on the popularity or the complexity of the position you're looking to fill. You can use all of these processes or parts of them, but it's important to mention that it doesn't matter how big or how small you are. This is relevant to you. If you have one employee, if you have no employees, your success, your survival is dependent upon acting like you are a bigger company than you really are. The bigger you act, the more procedures you put in play, the more successful you will be. And this has been proven time and time again. So some of you on the call today, because you're landlord source clients, you will already have a TouchStone account, but this may be new to others. I'm going to be showcasing TouchStone, and at the end of today's presentation, there will be a link for you to get a free trial of this, and all of the assets are in this account. So you're going to want to hang in there. You're going to want to text at the end of the event to get the free account, and you are going to want to download all of your assets. You could simply download all of the assets I've just shown you and then cancel your account. There's no fee to do this. There's no credit card necessary. It's far simpler for us to deliver all of these assets through one application than it is to try to save them as videos and Word documents and checklists and everything all over in different types of applications. And our hope is that you actually implement them using TouchStone, because TouchStone integrates all of your processes with the positions on your organization chart to automatically create position-specific operating manuals. Again, all of these assets are in a library that you can download and implement and edit in a TouchStone account. So it just makes it super easy. But if you don't want to keep this account, it's not a problem. You can simply cancel it. There's no fee, but it's just going to be the easiest way for you to access these tools, and it will be the easiest way to implement them if you choose to. So the place to begin then is with the job description. you really want to have a job description for the position you're about to hire. I can't tell you how many clients we talk to who say, I'm just going to go out and hire somebody. I'll just figure it out later. And they don't even have a job description. And when I speak about a job description, I don't just mean the advertisement or the advertisement for this position. And it's like, this is what I mean by the typical job description is an ad for the position. And in fact, this is probably what most of you think of when I use the term job description. I mean, it is a sort of a description of the job, right? A gorgeous high-tech endodontic practice in Saratoga, California, seeking a highly motivated, organized, enthusiastic individual for the position of practice manager. Skills required, great people skills, superb verbal and written skills, managerial. I mean, this is sort of a description for the job, but it's just an ad. It's useful to attract qualified candidates and provide some sort of a description of what the job entails, but it's essentially just a document that you put up on the web or on ZipRecruiter or Craigslist or Indeed.com or BirdDog or whatever HR type system you use to find candidates. It's just what you put up there to hire a new employee, and it's useful up to the point that a candidate is chosen for the position. There's nothing here that can actually help the employee accomplish anything. The purpose of this is nothing more than an ad for the position. And so while I will say that there's nothing wrong with this type of a job description, I'm going to tell you that there are really two types of job descriptions. There is the external job description, and that's what that one is. It's what most of you are familiar with. It's used primarily for searching for candidates. It sort of describes the job so people know what they're applying to do. And then there's what I will call the internal job description, the one that will be used to actually train the new employee, to manage the employee, and to evaluate the new employee. Before you hire a new employee, before you use your external job description to advertise for the new position, you want to develop an internal job description. A list of all of the actual processes someone hired for this position will be tasked to do. So the internal job description will be part of several internal management procedures. It will be used to not only hire the person, it will be used to train them, to manage them, and to evaluate them. Think of it as a position-specific operating manual. Okay, it's really a very valuable tool. So this is an example of an internal job description. So the position of litigation paralegal. So you might put a little bit of a paragraph, a few sentences up here that sort of describe the purpose of this position, but then you'll notice that everything else here is a list of processes. It defines almost exactly what someone filling this position will be doing. And as you'll see in a moment, when the employee clicks on any one of these process names, the instructions for how to do what needs to be done are displayed. It provides the instructions for that employee to be able to achieve what is expected of them. And as a result, this type of a job description, it can be used for much more than just hiring. It can be used for training, accountability, managing, performance evaluation. It can also be used for termination. I mean, this is the agreement to which an employee is measured. There's simply no excuse. You train and manage them to the processes on their job descriptions, the one that are listed right here, the ones that they have super easy access to find after they've been trained. And if they're not following the processes, or they're simply unable to excel in this position, you can just point right back to this job description and say, sorry, it's just not going to work out. So there are tools in TouchStone to help you build out these internal job descriptions. I'm going to toggle over to the TouchStone account. And if for those of you who have a TouchStone account, you can just click here and it's going to open up a separate resource center, which is filled with really useful information. First of all, there's a user guide. So if you click on user guides and scroll down, you're going to see there's a whole section on how to create job descriptions. And this is basically how to, there's a lot of information here. Secondly, if you go to these webinars, we have a whole series of trainings, and I would recommend this one and this one. A couple of hours of training on specifically on how to create your job descriptions. And then finally, within TouchStone, there's actually a list of processes that will assist you with thinking about a specific position. So let's say, for example, you're hiring a bookkeeper. You can actually go to the library of processes. You can select a key function and go to the process library. Remember, we're thinking about a bookkeeper. Well, what types of processes does a bookkeeper need? Well, look, they need an accounts payable process, an accounts receivable process, a budget process, maybe a collections process, maybe a process for handling deposits, maybe for financial statements, preparations for doing purchase orders, payroll. So you're going to just go through this list and select a bunch of them. I already did this, and then you're going to click Save, and then all of these processes will be downloaded into your TouchStone account. And then you can go to your organization chart and you can select bookkeeper. This is an org chart that you'll create, and you can add these processes to the position. So you can say, okay, he does accounts payable, he does accounts receivable, he does budget creation. So these are all the processes that are now loaded into my account. And what I'm doing now is I'm linking them to the position of bookkeeper, and I am essentially now creating a job description for this bookkeeper. So it just makes it a little bit easier when you can scroll through a list of process names to help you identify what positions in your organization do. And finally, if you're doing a really thorough job, or maybe it's an unusual position, I mean, bookkeeper, it's sort of it's similar from industry to industry and business to business. But if you've got I did this the other day, and the guy had a position called, he was an AV, an audio AV installation company, and he wants to hire a technician's helper. Well, you know, what are the processes for that? Well, there's another process up here called the process list development. I think that's what it's called. Process list development. So go grab that process and download it into your TouchStone account, just like I'm doing here. And if you open up this process, you'll see that there are a couple of tools here. First of all, there's a work plan that walks you through the process, what to do. Like, grab this activity tracker. And the activity tracker, I just downloaded this earlier, looks something like this. It's a really super simple spreadsheet. Basically, all you have to focus on, this is a sample, and by the way, we have samples in the library that you can refer to, and then there's a blank one. But basically, what you want to do is you want to sit down with either the person who does that position, or just brainstorm yourself and fill out column B. What does someone in this position need to do? So this is an example that I did with a client who was looking for an office manager. So I sat down with Alicia, and we walked through her position, and she said, well, you know, I do 401k admin, and I do medical admin. These are all benefits that we do here, and I do workers' comp. And we walked through everything she did. And sometimes things come up like this one. Well, I handle employment verifications. And I said, well, what's that mean? And she says, well, you know, when let's say an employee's trying to buy a new car, and they tell someone they work here, well, the bank's going to call me. And they're going to say, does John Smith work here? And I say, yes. And I say, well, that's not really a process. We're going to skip over that one. So this is a sample, and it's very helpful for you to walk through and ask yourself, just use that as a worksheet. It's going to be right here. You can download it. You just click there and say, view the file. So if I click here and say, view the file, it's going to download the file, and then you can open it. Really great little process to help you think of processes in addition to what we've got in our libraries, or if it's a fairly unique position. By the way, Landlord Source, you came to this presentation through Landlord Source. We have an entire library of Landlord Source processes. I haven't linked them to this account, but if you go up here with a TouchStone account, if you are an existing Landlord Source member, we will give you another link to all of their processes, and you can download all of their forms, all of their tools directly into your account. You can link them to specific positions on your org chart, give people those positions as they log in, and then they have access to everything they need to do their job more effectively. Okay, let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. So once you've got the internal job descriptions, oops, I always go the wrong way when I do that. Once you've got your internal job descriptions developed, the next best thing is to document the processes on that job description, if you can. So again, we've got in the resource center of our software, you can just click on the resource center and it will open up this. There are if you go to videos right here in the how-to videos, there's a video on how to write a process right here. It's a great little, very simple process on how to write a process for making coffee. Sort of silly, but because everybody knows how to make coffee, it's a great way to teach someone how to write processes. Also, from the main screen, if you go to these webinars here, we have some great process videos here on how to write a work plan, how to write a checklist, when to use a work plan, when to use a checklist, and then tools like scripts, uploaded files, when to use video, when to use audio. Just again, another really valuable set of trainings that you can use. Now, while it's great to have all of these processes documented before you hire someone, sometimes that's not so easy to do. It's sort of it seems like it's completely overwhelming. So there are other ways that we can recommend. The more you have done, the better, but there are other ways. So one example is during the training of a new employee. So we just did this with this technician helper. He hired the guy. He had a sort of a list of all of the processes, but he didn't have the processes written. And I said, well, as you're training him, have the new employee with a pen and a pad write down what you're telling them. And then give them a little bit of space during the day to go document the handwritten notes into, well, in this case, it was into TouchStone, but you could have someone do it into Microsoft Word or Google Docs or whatever you want, Google Sheets, whatever. Just have them write down what you told them. And then tomorrow, do a quick review. Go through and look at what they did. Think of how well trained they're going to be. First of all, you're telling them how to do what you need them to do. And you can probably be sure that they're paying attention because they know that they're going to be responsible for documenting what they're being told. And then they're going to take what you told them and they're going to write it up. And this is often where they realize they missed something, or there was a step where maybe you've made an assumption. And they're going to say, well, wait, John, how do we get from here to here? So they're going to write it up. And then the following day, you're going to sit down with them and go through it, and they can ask questions. You can look to see that they got it all right. So you're engaging multiple sensory experiences. There's an auditory experience when you're telling them what to do. There's a visual experience because they're actually writing it down and seeing it in words, and that's also a kinesthetic experience. And you're repeating the process 3 times. Once during training, once as they're writing it up, and then the 3rd time during a review. Now remember, once you've done this, you really don't have to do it again. These processes and job descriptions tend to stay current, especially when using a tool like TouchStone, because the processes are actually being used by employees and managers. Employees actually use the processes to remember how to do things, and managers use the processes to train as well as to manage. They're going to hold their reporting employees accountable to the expectations and the instructions on the processes that are on the job descriptions. So these things tend to stay current organically. So once you've done it, you don't have to do it again. And gradually, you're going to have all these processes written. So another method that's worked really well with our clients is to create a monthly workshop. Pick a process on someone's job description and then meet with them, either the employee or the employees who are in that position. Don't be freaked out because I've got, 12 or however many people in this room in this photograph. It could be one person that you're talking to, the one person who actually uses that process. And then ask them over the next couple of weeks, think about how you do this process. Think about things like the steps you take, what you do, the materials you use, any forms that you fill in, the things you say, what do you say, things like that. Have them consider this for, a couple of weeks. Ask them to pay attention to what they do with the intention of, let's get this thing written up. Let's try to figure out what we're doing here. And then on a specific date and time, you can get together and collaborate to get it written up. I mean, we recommend do a lunch and learn. Sit down with them over lunch at a conference table and throw it up on a whiteboard, get it down. And then if you do have multiple people, just retrain them in the new process that you've written up. Okay, so you've got the job description defined, you've got some, maybe all, and maybe none of the processes documented. It's time to start a search for candidates. In TouchStone, you're going to go to the 4 key functions here, and you're going to come up to the process library, and you're going to grab, it's called New Employee Search, and I'm going to put it in the Human Resources category here. And it's under the ends, it's called New Employee Search right here. Go grab that process. It's going to download it into your TouchStone account, and you can open it up. Now remember, you can take every one of these processes and run it out to a Word file or a PDF. So you don't have to keep your TouchStone account to grab this. It's just there's so much content here. It makes it a heck of a lot easier for us to deliver it to you and organize it accordingly. In this process called New Employee Search, there are 4 work plans. The first one is very simple. It's going to remind you to make sure that the job description has been defined and that it's been reviewed to ensure it's current. So if you did this, 18 months ago and you're about to hire someone else, just go over it again. Just click back on the organization chart, click on the bookkeeper position and say, yeah, this is still what they do. Okay. Then you're going to make sure that the salary makes sense. It's either a salary or hourly review. And if you're a manager in the organization, you want to check with your with the owner or someone else just to confirm the salary. And then you're going to decide on the medium. How are you going to put it out there? And there's actually a job application form here. So there's a detailed job application and a sample job application. And again, if you're a landlord source client, there are other more specific application forms to landlord source type, property management positions. And then you're going to begin the search. You're going to actually put that job description out on the internet. And there might be more tasks that you add to this process. There's another great little program here called Email 20 Spheres. So the idea here is that whole sphere of influence. If you want to hire within, send the job application out, pick 20 people that maybe in leads groups, or if you've got a mentor group that you're working with, or could be some employees in your existing organization. So try a few different things. You're basically reaching out to peer groups to find good candidates. And if you don't want to do this process, by the way, if these work, then you can just delete this work plan and customize the whole process for yourself. Remember, anything that you do here is editable. So, okay. So now, I always do that. Sorry. So now you've got the job description defined and you've got some of the processes documented, you've got your ad posted, you're going to start getting some resumes, some calls. Now what do? It's the interview process. And in TouchStone, again, we're going to grab a process from the general process library called new employee interviewing. Let's put it again in the human resources category and grab this process right here and click save. Here again, you're going to see 3 work plans. Let's go into new employee new employee interviewing. The first one is to screen through the resumes. And basically here, you're just trying to find out, does the candidate meet the relevant position that, you know, if they're if you're looking for a bookkeeper and someone with no QuickBooks experience applies, you might want to filter that and filter that out. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to do some quick telephone interviews. We typically recommend like a 5-minute interview. And the purpose of the quick telephone interview is to filter down all the resumes and calls that you're getting to the top 3 or 4 candidates. If someone doesn't show up for the scheduled telephone interview, they filtered themselves out. You don't even have to worry about that candidate anymore. They're not very reliable. If they bang their way back into the door to try to get to you because something happened, then that's a good sign. So do a quick telephone interview. There are all sorts of great questions that we have here. So if you're looking for a managerial position, you can ask some of these questions in the managerial section. You can ask some of these questions on the telephone. If you're looking for employment history, you can ask these questions. There's even a list of illegal questions that you don't want to ask. So different things are all part of this process. The third work plan is going to be the in-person interview. You really want to interview more than 2 candidates, more than 1 candidate, more than 2 candidates. You don't really want to interview more than 4. So 3 or 4 candidates, pick 3 or 4. If after you've interviewed 4, you don't have a solid candidate to hire, go back to the resumes and the telephone interviews or repost your ad. Just start the process again. It's replicatable. Do it again. Okay, so you've chosen the top candidate. You've made them an offer. They've accepted. Now it's really, really important to start things off right, to set the stage, and hence the onboarding process. Remember when I started talking earlier, I was talking about the chaos, the overwhelm, the impatience when someone arrives. This is where you got to nip that in the bud. So again, we have a bunch of really great processes that you can download. If you come up to the general process library and you will look for, I think it's called New Employee Onboarding and the New Employee Introduction and Orientation processes. These may be overkill for some people on the call today, but what I will say, remember that conversation I had about make it like you're a bigger company than you actually are. It's really, really valuable to take these processes, but specifically these 2 processes, the new employee onboarding and the new employee introduction, you may want to combine them. But let's just have a quick look at what these are. So first of all, the work plan for preparing to have a new employee arrive. First of all, you want to confirm the start date, the time, place. I mean, it sounds obvious, right? But so few people actually do this. You want to send out an email to people in your company to make sure that they know, or maybe just have a lunch together and say, we're hiring a new, technician's helper, and it's John Smith, and he's coming tomorrow. I hope you, welcome him. You want to prepare the employee's calendar for the first 2 weeks. These are just ideas. There are all sorts of good things. There's a work plan for the first day of training. Clarify the schedule, socialize the employee, make sure you take them out for lunch, just different ideas, take them for a tour of your facility. There are 30-day and 60-day evaluation plans, or you could call this a 90-day. You could just come up in here and say, you know what, this is a very complex position. We're going to change this to a 90-day evaluation plan and click save and make it a 90-day evaluation plan. But you definitely want to make a commitment to your new employee and to yourself to make a timed decision based on their training and the progress they're making, how they fit into your corporate culture. Could be 30, could be 60, could be 90, but make a decision. Don't hang out there thinking, I just don't know, maybe they'll make it. If you're hearing yourself saying that, all you're saying is that you're afraid to make a decision. If it doesn't work during your onboarding, you're going to talk to them about, we've got a 30-day evaluation period, and at that time, it's your opportunity to say it's not working for you. It's our opportunity to say it's not working for us. We are going to make a decision. If you let someone go during the 30, 60, 90-day, whatever your evaluation period is, that is not a mishire. A mishire is if you kept them on for 6 months, for 18 months, and never let them go because you just couldn't deal with the firing process, the emotions of that, or you couldn't deal with the effort of rehiring somebody. Again, this is procedural. This does not take a lot of time. It does not take a lot of effort. It's not complex. It's really simple. You just walk through these processes that I'm giving you. Make a decision. It's as simple as that. And if you've sort of rolled with it as you have gone through in the onboarding and orientation, and you said that this is going to happen, we're going to have this conversation after 30 days, it's also not emotionally challenging. So there's another process here for orientation and introduction. This is interesting because this is when you're going to introduce the new employee to who you are. You're going to share your vision with them. You're going to share your policies, your handbook, how you manage there. You're going to establish expectations for the new employee so that they can begin to understand what they need to do to succeed. And it's also important that they believe in your vision and that they believe in your culture, that there's a good fit. Because if they don't fit, it's not going to be a good experience for you or for them. So there are links to other assets in our library, like the management philosophy, a process for creating a strategic plan, a new employee checklist. Well, actually, this is right here. It comes with the process. So here, remember, like, did you get an application? Did you get a resume? Do you have your I-9 done? Do they get a laptop? Is there a non-compete agreement? You can go through and edit these and step by step make it custom to your company depending on what you need to do. So very, very simple and really super valuable. But there are other assets in our libraries. I will be mentioning these at the end for like progressive discipline process, how you do verbal warnings, how you do written warnings, how you do termination. We're not going to go into that today, but needless to say, they are available to you at your disposal. Okay, so now you've set the stage. The new employee has been introduced. They're on board with your vision. They're learning about your culture. They're experiencing your culture. They've been shown around. They've been introduced. Now it's time for training. Did you know that when you're talking to someone, when you're just telling them what to do, they're hearing less than 20% of what you're telling them? Studies show that people retain about 18% of what you're telling them. So is it any wonder that you have to tell people when you're, that's what we call the tribal method of training. You have to tell people over and over and over and over again and again and again and again. They're not paying attention. They're paying attention to the question they want to ask, or they're fascinated by a piece of fluff on your beard or your lapel or whatever. So training is more than talking about it, or it's more than shadowing another employee. Those are part of it, but it's more than that. Remember those processes you documented in step 2 of this plan? Now is when you walk them step by step through every process, every work plan, every script, and you check in with them along the way to make sure that they understand everything. Ask if they have questions. If they don't ask questions, if they say they understand, then you're good to go. I mean, with the TouchStone account, by the way, they always have easy access to these processes that you've trained them on, and you can actually track what processes that they've been trained in. Every time you train them in a process tool, you check it off. I've trained them in that, and it timestamps it so that you know that they were trained and they know that they were trained. But everything is available to them at the click of a button. So there is a process in TouchStone called the job description training. So we're going to go up to the gold key function and go add from process library. Let's put this under management and scroll down to the J's. It's called job description training. Click save. This is a very simple work plan where you walk them through step by step all of the processes on their job description. Now, once you've done this, there might be some other tools that you develop. Like you could literally go to their to the position, take that bookkeeper job description, for example, and run it out to a Word file. And then on each one of these processes, you could say, well, Jan's gonna train this one, and Steven's gonna train this, and I'll train them on this, and so you can actually create and assign training to other people in the organization. You might even consider creating a checklist. There is a training checklist built into TouchStone, but if you're not keeping TouchStone, you could just simply create a checklist so that you could confirm at any point how far the new employee has progressed in their training. But again, remember, the goal is to give this employee this more robust experience than simply talking to them, or just do what Jan's doing, and you know, I'll get to you later. The goal is to walk them through the instructions so that they have this experience, this auditory experience, this visual experience, even this kinesthetic experience of getting to actually work with their position-specific operations manual, so they really get what they need to do, how to do it, and what is expected of them. They always have the instructions to fall back on. So if I'm a bookkeeper, I can simply click on bookkeeper. I can go to the accounts payable process, and I can click on how to pay bills, and it will walk me through that process. So simple as that. Okay. So the final step, we're coming into the last few slides here. You need a management system, a management process to make sure the employee has a place to ask questions, as well as having a place where you can continue their training, their follow-up. You need to be able to check in to ensure that they're achieving the expectations you have of them. I mean, this is gonna be very helpful for your 30, 60, 90-day review, but it's also gonna be helpful for ongoing development. And it's going to be helpful to minimize the interruptions, the sort of the got-a-minute meetings that people come into your office. I mean, you ever had that experience where people say, hey, you know, Mike, you got a minute? It's never a minute. If any of you have ever seen Michael Gerber speak, he's quite a character, and I have a really short, quick clip of Michael speaking to a group of entrepreneurs. I just want to play this. Let me just amp up the volume and play this. You'll get a good chuckle out of this.
The third system is how we manage here. Yes, a management system. You ask most managers how they manage, I manage. I manage. I mean, it's pretty difficult to manage around here, but I manage. I get by. I'm a people person. I can look into his eye. I can know when he's lying, when he's not. I had psychology in school. I've been around this business for a long time. Nobody can get by me. I manage. What do? I do what I do. He ain't going to tell you because he don't know what he does. He couldn't explain it in a million years. I know that's not true of anybody in the room. But it's true of everybody I meet out there. There ain't no management system. This is how we manage here. That's what they do at McDonald's. You think they hire professional managers from Harvard to come and manage those money machines? God forbid. They grow those people from the inside out. They teach them their system. They teach them everything they need to know to become better and better and better and better.
So have any of you ever seen Michael speak or have heard of his book, The E-Myth, Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work and What to Do About It? He's quite a character. In fact, if you've been doing any research on us, we used to be E-Myth consultants, and we used to deliver Michael's E-Myth Mastery Program. Hundreds and hundreds of businesses we help systemize their organizations. But it's great. He says, there ain't no management systems. It's not proper English, but the point is so well made. So few companies actually have processes for management. And in the example, he uses McDonald's. Well, you know, a lot of people say, well, I've got a property management company. That's very different than a McDonald's, but I've never yet seen a company that, any type of company in any type of industry, that we have not been able to make process dependent. But I love what he says there. They don't hire top-level managers from Harvard. They have management processes, and they train their managers in their management processes so they know what to do and they understand what is expected of them. So again, in TouchStone, we have a management process. It's an excellent process. It's under the gold key function, and it's called the one-on-one manager process. And I'm going to put this under management. We have a number of different processes, by the way, but this is, I think it's called the, go down to the O's, one-on-one manager right here, and click save. When we're working with business owners, this is the one process that so many of our clients say has made the most profound impact on their business. This is where you can recognize reporting employees. This is where you can check in with them to see how they're doing. This is where you can appreciate them. It's also where you remind them about the processes on their job descriptions. Are they getting to everything? Are they doing Are they doing things that aren't on their job description? You can have them check in on the processes that they're following. Are they current? Do edits need to be made? Are they even working? Are you doing things differently? Is there a better way? Now, it's also obviously about checking in on projects and making sure that they're on track with what they're doing in the business. But it's the goal here is to minimize interruptions. When one of my reporting employees comes into my office and asks, "Hey, Mike, you know, I got a quick question. You have a minute?" My initial response is always, "Can it wait until our weekly meeting?" Because if it can wait, then it can wait. But if my employee says, "No, it can't wait," and if it is something that could have waited, I can get a little stern and I nip that in the bud, and then they don't do it anymore. Interruptions are huge time wasters, literally hours a day. If any of you have been frustrated by interruptions, you want to take a look at this process, because it will make a significant difference in working with your employees. So there are other tools in the system. There's a sample employee benefits manual, for example. There's the management philosophy. There's performance evaluation processes, employee termination processes. Again, anything and everything here can be edited and used. Two more key points I want to make before we end things. The worst time to hire someone is when you really need someone. And then that sounds sort of counterintuitive, I know, but think about it. This is the time when you're stressed, when the company is stressed, and when most of the employees in the organization are overwhelmed. You don't feel like you can afford the time to find someone. You don't have the time or the patience to train someone. They don't get the attention they need to succeed, and they will drop into this company that is stressed and overwhelmed. It's not a great way to start as a new employee. We actually have a whole process called capacity planning. If you're interested, reach out to me. I can send you that material. It's not really part of this, although it's more strategic when it comes to the recruiting and hiring process. Secondly, hiring the expert versus hiring someone to train. Now, I'm not saying don't hire an expert. I just want to put out a warning. Experts tend to be prima donnas. They're untrainable, they're uncoachable, they're unmanageable, often. Not always, but often. They don't listen. They feel they have a better way. And again, it's not always the case. And sometimes it's great to get an expert, to hire an expert, especially if you do not have a way of doing something in their area of expertise, because they come in and now you've got the opportunity to capture their way and make it your way if it works. But if you've got a way, then document it and take the time to train the new employee and manage the new employee to your processes and your expectations. It's almost always easier because you'll have someone who will listen to you, who will follow your way, and they're almost always less expensive. So there you have it. A series of processes that are available to you right now to implement. Imagine what it would be like if you were a new employee being recruited and hired by a firm deploying this kind of a systematic approach. Put yourself in the employee's shoes. What would it feel like if you walked into a company? What would your experience be like if they were deploying these processes? When you implement these processes, when you deploy an entirely systematic approach to the recruiting and hiring processes, things are not only significantly easier for you, but you will also get better candidates, and there are plenty out there. And when they come on board, they'll be indoctrinated to the way you manage your business. They'll have everything they need to get up to speed quickly and easily, and they'll have adopted the process dependency of your business from the very get-go. So I'm going to say thank you to Kathleen Richards and Landlord Source for giving me the opportunity to present this today to you. If you are interested, for those of you on the call who do not already have a TouchStone account and would like to access all of these tools and materials, you are going to need to register for a trial account. There's no fee. You don't need to put in a credit card. Just go ahead and text "try it free" to that number on your screen, 707-800-3603. That is the simplest way to get all this content. There's way too much for me to send you videos, sample documents. You can download it all. It's going to sort it and organize it all for you, and then you can save it as Microsoft Word documents as you like. Remember, TouchStone is a web-based application that makes it easier for you to implement all these operating procedures that you have, and there are much more than just recruiting, training, and management processes here. There are processes for all elements of your business. TouchStone is going to help you integrate all of these processes with positions on your org chart, so you assign someone to a specific position in your company, and it immediately gives them access to a position-specific operating manual. By the way, if you decide not to keep your subscription, it is a subscription application. There's no fee to get the trial, but if you do choose to keep the subscription, it's $149 a month on a month-by-month basis. If you choose not to keep the subscription, you can just download all of the content that you've saved and written and worked with and downloaded from our libraries. You can save it as Word files. So just go ahead and text "try it free" to that number, 707-800-3603. You don't have to enter a credit card. You'll have complete access to all of the instructions you need to help you systemize your business. And finally, if I just want to make a note to those people who couldn't make it today, they may be watching this on YouTube. You can still click "try it free" or text "try it free" to that number, but there will also be a link in the description below the YouTube channel that you can click on so that you can get access to an account. Okay, so let me just see if, I apologize, we're 10 minutes over, but let me just see if there are questions that I can answer. And again, if you've offered up a question and it, okay, let's just see. Any questions? Anybody have any questions? Let me just see. I'm not seeing any. Hold on. Yeah, no, I'm not seeing any questions. Okay, so thank you again for joining me today, and thank you to Kathleen Richards of Landlord Source for, again, giving me this opportunity. Hope you found the information to be valuable and useful, and please feel free to reach out to me specifically if you have any questions My email address is mmills@businessdesigncorp.com. My phone number, direct line, is 707-522-6253. Come to our website, businessdesigncorp.com, www.businessdesigncorp.com. We have a ton of resources there. And this is also where you can access some of our videos, the training videos and the webinars and the how-to videos, all sorts of content there that's available to you for free. Okay, thank you, everybody. Talk to you soon.